Hey guys, welcome back. In this video, as you may know, the rear brake line for the go-kart is not long enough to reach. So what I did was I got a brake line splitter for a motorcycle, another piece of line, and we're going to go ahead and install that and bleed the brakes. Okay, so the line off the master cylinder there is not long enough to reach all the way back to the rear brake caliper there. You can see this is where the first line would end. So I got this piece here, it's a splitter. It's got three ends to it. One I've just blocked off with a nut there, and the other two are connected to the brake lines. Now usually this is used on motorcycles to attach two front brakes. But what I'm doing is just blocking off one and essentially using it as a connector for these two lines. I have another piece of shorter line that runs to the brake caliper that I attached there. Okay, so now that the dune line's installed, we have to bleed the brakes. That's because now we have air trapped in both the connector and the new line, as well as the caliper. Now the reason you need to bleed brakes is because air is compressible versus brake fluid, which is not compressible, or at least they have a very high tendency to not compress. So that essentially gives you the ability to use brakes. When you press the brake pedal, it compresses the fluid through the line into the caliper and squeezes the pads. If there was something compressible like regular water or air, you would essentially press the brake pedal and none of that power would be transmitted through the fluid. So basically what you do in the brake bleeding system is open a bleeder valve on the caliper, press the brake pedal, close the valve, and then release the brake pedal. And doing that is going to push both fluid and air through the system, and you watch through a clear tube to see when all the fluid is running through and no air, which essentially indicates to you that the brakes are bled and you're done. Before you start anything, you're going to want to go to your master cylinder and unscrew the top cap. Now keep in mind that on the top cap, it'll tell you which dot level fluid to put in there. This one says only .3 brake fluid. It's important not to mix them, mostly because of differing boiling temperatures. So once that's off, you're good to go. Now it's important to note that brake fluid is incredibly caustic. It can irritate your skin and your eyes, so I suggest wearing gloves when you do this. Okay, so what you can see here, it's kind of a very basic version of the bleed kit. I have a wrench here slipped over the bleed valve, which you can see there, which I can use to open and close that valve. Over it is a piece of clear tubing, which you can see there's fluid in now because I already started the process. And then attached to that zip tied is a bag which just collects the extra fluid as I'm watching for bubbles. Okay, so now you can see up close to the tubing there, and you'll be able to see little bubbles come out as we continue this process. So again, that's going to be, I have someone sitting in the car right now, and when I tell them, they're going to press the brake pedal. So first, I open this valve by twisting it. I tell them to press the brake pedal. They press, and you can see tiny little bubbles come out. Now I'm going to close the valve, and then they can release the brake pedal. So you essentially repeat that process until all the air bubbles go away. So again, open valve, press the brake, these little air bubbles, close the valve, release. Open the valve, press the brake, close the valve, release. And you repeat that process until you see no more air bubbles coming out. One thing to keep in mind when you're doing this is the level in the master cylinder. I just filled this up to the max line, but as you do this, especially when you're first starting out, it'll go down pretty quickly. And you gotta be diligent in filling that up so that you don't get any air sucked in through the top there. If you do, what'll end up happening is air will get sucked into the system and you'll have to repeat the process, but throughout the entire system, not just the line you're working on.